I'll just go quickly over where we are now, which is that about half the states are likely to ban abortion. 6 already have them in effect because of trigger laws that enabled them to go into effect as soon as Roe was overturned. There are a number of other states, 4 other states, I believe. It's changing every day because some get challenged and enjoined. Some states decide to go ahead and do this. But we've got bans all over the country already happening. Florida's got a 15-week ban. Mississippi's 15-week ban is in effect. It's also got, although, a 6-week ban and a trigger law that bans abortions throughout pregnancy. Utah is enforcing and was enjoined, et cetera, et cetera. So then let's talk about what we can do. And as individuals, of course, there's what I was saying is, yes, voting, organizing, donating money, particularly, and here I'm being a little selfless. I just want to brag because I'm telling you to donate money to the abortion funds instead of telling you to donate money to the program for the study of reproductive justice, which, although it's at Yale Law School, we raise our own monies for. And we have produced, see, here I am doing a plug anyway. We have produced staff attorneys who are now operating at all the major litigating groups. And we do that through our legal clinic and teach the Yale Law students how to go out and do this work. So that's my little plug for the program for the study of reproductive justice at Yale, but also providing money to the funds who are going to be directly assisting women to travel out of state is very important. There's a whole legal issue about travel out of state. And that actually brings me to the next thing, which is not what we can do, but what President Biden can do. I was very impatient for him to do something. He finally has issued an executive order that puts into place some provisions that will assist women, and that actually our program had suggested through another organization. I'm sure other people were suggesting these same things, but he's protecting, doing everything they can with the FDA to protect access to medication abortion, which is effective up to 9 weeks. Very important option, obviously, for women. The right to travel, he's protecting the right to travel, which allows women to go out of state. The only problem with that is that the states will try to go after providers that are in the other states, and the providers themselves are not traveling. Any restriction on them, you may be able to challenge under the woman's right to travel. The Biden executive orders also offer abortions at military bases, a limited number of abortions, but this is to, military service members and for a limited types of abortions, those necessary because of rape or incest or to protect the life of the woman. There's also private clinics, private mobile clinics being set up on the borders of states. That is another thing that people can support. And so, a lot of this is support these things with money, support these things with political action. And yes, I think those are the 2 ways that someone who doesn't want to go out in the field themselves, those are ways you can help. And they're incredibly vital. And I would say in particular, donating money to people that are trying to provide abortions in these less traditional settings. There's a new group that is just starting up, and it's a very exciting project. It's called Prowess. I forget what the initials stand for completely, but they are creating a boat that will be parked in the waters, particularly near the Gulf states, where there are many, many restrictions, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, et cetera. And they'll be parked out there so women can go out to the clinics to get abortions. But in order to be able to get not just medication abortion in the boat and to be able to get surgical abortion, you need a big boat because you need it to be very stable. There was a woman who did this internationally, would go to countries where abortion was banned and give medication abortions to women out on the waters. And she did it in a sailboat. but she was unable to provide surgical abortions in that boat. So they need money to get the boat, and they're raising quite a bit of money. So that's something to look up. They're out of UCSF, very reputable, up and coming abortion providers, which is something else we really need in the field, right, as young people, to provide abortion. So I know that doesn't give people a lot of things to feel like they can do on the ground, or where you're sitting right now, but political action in these other states, helping organize in other states. You guys are in Connecticut, things are pretty good where you sit. The big problems are Southeast, Midwest, and those states are the places that need a lot of help, where women need a lot of help.
Priscilla, that was fabulous. We're going to open it up. Mona.
Hi. I wanted to ask, following up on the religious question. So I'm Jewish, and there's a lot of articles coming out and a lot of talk about opposing Roe based on religious discrimination. And I think that there's, in the texts, it's very easy to prove that this is a violation of certainly my belief system as a Jew. What do you think is the viability of a lawsuit like that?
Unfortunately, the religious arguments were tried back in the late 80s, early 90s to challenge bans on abortion that were being passed to test Roe at that period of time. Well, there's two claims. The Establishment Clause, this isn't an establishment of religious belief about the fetus, and also, for example, your ability to exercise your religious belief by getting an abortion is being violated. The courts did not accept those views. And they said, well, it's really up to the moral view of the populace as a whole. For example, there's a lot of other things we regulate that different religions disagree with. Basically, they destroyed any Establishment Clause arguments. The Establishment Clause itself is just poof. Poof, voila, it's gone. There's nothing much left of it. The free exercise arguments are things that I have always wanted people to push more. But with this court, let's just recognize with this Supreme Court, it's going nowhere. The free exercise arguments the way they're talking about them for people who want to refuse to provide things like a cake for gay marriage. You remember these cases? The right to free exercise in those contexts is being given much broader reading, and that should apply also to your right to exercise your right to abortion as part of your religious belief. But I'm not optimistic, given the way the federal judiciary has been taken over by Trump judges. These things can change back. I don't want to be too depressing here and give people no hope. But remember, Roe's been around for 50 years, yes, but there are lots of other rights that we have pushed forward in a certain way, and then they push back and we push forward. And it's a sort of give and take process based in part on democracy, on the will of the people and the voting power, and the way that impacts the court systems. On the other hand, you can argue that our system is not properly functioning democracy. Republic is what we really are, but not a properly functioning, representation of the will of the people because of access to voting, because of the gerrymandering and dilution of power, even because of the way the Senate is created, which means Wyoming gets 2 senators and so does New York. And so the power of a New Yorker to control and to have a voice in the popular will is very limited compared to the people of Wyoming. Those are some of the arguments.
Let's get as many questions as we can. Jim.
Priscilla, thank you. Keeping up with the current situation, I'm seeing more and more states trying to block travel, regulate the importation of drugs. How does this even make logical sense when you have unimpeded travel between the states in the 14th Amendment and the Commerce Clause?
First of all, it doesn't make logical sense. It's not rational or reasonable. It's based on certain people's belief system, which the rest of us don't share. In particular, I think you're asking also about the right to travel. How can this make any sense that one state can prevent somebody from going to another state? And there are a number of arguments against them being able to restrict things that way, they may prove successful in the end. Academics have been looking at the issue of prosecuting people for behavior that they go out of state and then they come back, or prosecuting out of state doctors. And there are just lots of scholarly disagreements about it, but it makes no practical sense. And the court says always, we are returning this issue to the states. That's their big thing, is that this is such an important issue. It needs to be decided state by state. If Texas can prosecute folks for going to New Mexico, and even more prosecute the doctor in New Mexico, then this is not up to the individual state anymore. It's up to the state that wants to impose its view around the country. It becomes Texas's country. We're not just the disunited states, we're the Texas state.
Go to Holger.
Hello, thank you for a very interesting evening so far. I'm in Wichita, Kansas, and in Kansas we have a special election coming up on August 2nd that decides on the fate of abortion rights in Kansas. The Supreme Court upheld that the Kansas Constitution protects abortion.
Right.
Now change to the Kansas Constitution is on the ballot on August 2nd. So I'm interested on your perspective, how it looks like from outside of Kansas. Of course, here it's a very big deal, but how much impact would this have on the nation one way or another?
At this point, I think every state is being watched very closely, if not by the public at large, certainly by the litigating groups. In Kentucky, for example, which had never ruled on the right to abortion, there was just a case which established a right to abortion under the Kentucky Constitution. Half the states are likely to ban and half the states are likely to be okay, would include the fact that Kansas is a conservative state that may very well try to overturn the right. But everything's being watched. There's a great map on the website of the Center for Reproductive Rights. We did a report when I was there years ago called What If Roe Fell? And they've updated it, and now they have a map that's interactive online, and it'll show you what's happening day to day in the states and who's imposed the thing and what who's imposed a ban and what is happening politically around the issue as well.
KH, why don't you ask your question?
Hi. These state by state and everything that's going on, all of this horrible stuff, when the Republicans have all three branches of government, abortion's done for America.
One of the things people think this is going to stop here, the issue will go back to the states. There's a lot of skepticism that this is going to go to contraception, and it's definitely going to contraception. And the other thing that people are not, I think in the general public, it's certainly being downplayed by the right and by the Republicans, but there's a push not only for a federal ban on abortion, which would apply everywhere, so that Massachusetts and Connecticut don't have their say anymore. And I use them obviously as stand-in for all the blue state, but also for a constitutional amendment to protect the life of a fertilized egg. That's been their goal for a very long time, and Reagan was pushing that issue. Now that there's no right to abortion, there's nothing stopping the Congress from passing the law except for the political process. So scary.
Thank you so very much. I'm not sure you can hear everybody applaud.
Thank you. I mean, this is really fun. I love talking to the humanists